everybody. Welcome to the Hoopercast Movie Hour. It's Connor, and here I am, alone, because our recording was abruptly rescheduled. So I'm going to go ahead and give you this intro to the Smile 2 episode. Dustin and I both saw this movie. He much earlier than I. It's on Paramount Plus, so if you want to check it out, that's where you can see it and listen to our review. If you are not convinced that you should watch it yet, you should listen to the review because I think you should. Especially if you like scary things. Right. Okay. So enjoy this episode. It's the Smile 2 review, Hoopercast Movie Hour. Don't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep. Talk about Smile 2 with you because I finally got to see this.
Okay.
I need you to listen to me. Something really bad happened. You remember Louis Fergoli from high school? I went to his apartment. But when I showed up, Louis?
No, get away from me! What?
He was smiling at me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sky Riley, you are in the middle of a big world tour. You okay?
I keep seeing this face everywhere.
This thing is a parasite. You witnessed a death. Now it's latched onto you.
911, what's your emergency?
I've traced the string of deaths to you. Nobody has survived longer than a week.
Sky, pull it together and get back out there.
No, I will not let this thing use me.
How do we stop it?
We need to kill you first.
What? We have to end it. No matter what. You're not in control. I
I need to stop it, but I don't know how.
Okay. So Smile 2 is on Paramount Plus finally. And so I had gotten it to watch Transformers 1, which I believe you will hear about in a couple weeks. So Smile 2, once again, written and directed by Parker Finn. The movie stars Naomi Scott, Rosemarie DeWitt, Lucas Gage, Miles Gutierrez-Riley, Peter Jacobson, Ray Nicholson, Dylan Gilula, Raul Castillo, and some other people. But it's the sequel to the 2022 film Smile, which we talked about on this show. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty similar plot.
Yep.
The Smile phenomenon happens to a new main character.
Yes.
And she suffers horribly. And
yes.
And then it ends.
Yes.
So my take on Smile 2, how long ago did you see this, Dustin?
It's been a little over a month.
Okay.
5 or 6 weeks, maybe.
I would say I liked this one about the same or more than the first film. I watched this movie. I had guests over and and then like they left really late, like 11:30 or something. And I decided that I was going to watch this film. And so I finished it at like 2 a.m. So I'm like, so I actually like watched it at night and everything. And I was like, okay. Yeah, good mood. I left my Christmas tree on as light, but I was creeped out the entire time. Thanks in large part to the positively unsettling sound design of this movie and a hell of a performance by Naomi Scott. I think all the actors here are amazing. I think she's just simply on another level. You know, horror doesn't get enough recognition for its actors, and I hope this film helps change that. For sure, because it's up there. The story itself really doesn't differ at all from the first film. It's not so much the hope of a resolution that's going to drive the story. It's the slow descent itself that's the main commentary. So in that sense, it suffers for me from the same problems as the first film, which is a lack of a satisfying resolution or a message for its themes. You know, but I think it's clear at this point that that's not their intention. So it at least is consistent with other things, the other film in the series. So sure. I'm interested to see where the franchise goes from here because it ends with different implications than the last film did. And I actually read today that the Smile 3 is going to be in production next year. So I think they're already gearing up to make it. Yeah. Okay. So I am certainly excited to see the next one. And I think that, you know, retroactively, like it might be looked back on as a pretty solid series, albeit with, you know, a missed opportunity narratively or thematically perhaps, but delivering on its premise nonetheless. Sure. So I don't know. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm mostly right there with you. I think I probably did like this one better than the first one, but I rated them the same on Letterboxd, so it's marginally better. I give it 4 stars. I think it's a solid movie, and I enjoyed watching it. Had a great time. I saw it in the theater. It was a great theater experience, and so big props to that. You get all that glorious sound design in the theater. But I agree with your assessment that like your mileage will vary based on how much you liked the first one and how much you enjoy the resolution that it will inevitably bring. I guess the ending, while I was still in the first act, that I know exactly how this is going to end. And that's fine because it's more about the journey getting there and like you said, the slow descent. But I do wish there was more to it than there was. So in some ways, it's like in most ways, it's better than the first one. Yeah. But that ending is so unsatisfying that it almost knocks it down and goes, okay, after 2 movies, you still can't craft an ending for this thing that's satisfactory. Yeah. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board because like in thinking about it, the idea that you could overcome this or that it would leave forever, like you could defeat it, would defeat the purpose of the fact that this is going to be an ongoing franchise. Right. So, okay, granted that you have to keep the monster alive or whatever, how do you weaken it? How do you beat it? How do you escape it? And I don't know, but I feel like there has to be, because with both of these movies, there's this metaphor, this analogy of like mental health and the way that, you perceive trauma and then the way that you pass that trauma on to others. And that's a really cool message, but it does seem like the message of both films is there's no hope. Yeah. If you've been traumatized, you will traumatize other people and there's no way around it. Yeah. And I think that breaking the cycle of trauma and abuse and depression and anxiety and all the other things is possible. And it's not possible without a lot of hard work and without a lot of sacrifice, but it is possible. And so again, like it's a double-edged sword, because if you go that route, then it's almost too hopeful of an ending, because with a horror movie, like, do you really want the ending to be and they all lived happily ever after? Right. Probably not. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, because you're attempting these lofty themes about trauma, but you can't the very nature of the genre you're working in almost cannot allow you to say anything positive or true about it. All you can say is the one thing, which is, hey, it sucks and you're going to make other people's lives terrible.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily true.
Right.
So I think you'd have to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, look, Smile 3, we have to say something different. It has to end differently. And however that is going to play out is either going to be the end of the franchise or it's not, but we also cannot have they all lived happily ever after. So how do we take our main character, allow them to lose everything, and yet still kind of win? Like, my mind went to The Thing, right? Because The Thing is just amazing. But John Carpenter's The Thing ends with a victory that is also a question mark.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the only way you can do it in a horror movie is you are victorious, or are you? And I think that's kind of how the first one ended, because it's almost like she was victorious and then she succumbed at the end to the darkness and passed it on. So it was like it was going there and then it stopped. And then this one, I don't think it ever was going to go there. It's just, it just was going to be what it was. So my problems with the ending aside, I think this is a really solid movie. I enjoyed Sky Riley. The character that Naomi Scott plays is a good character, a well-crafted character. She's complex. She's interesting. She clearly has some issues, some character flaws, which makes her interesting.
Yep.
And then when you watch her struggle, you really do root for her because you want her to get better. She wants to get better. And I think that that's a really good character. So I don't really remember the characters from the first movie. So the fact that I do remember Sky Riley as much as I do, that's a good sign. I think it's a great character and a great performance. I do wish the supporting characters were a little stronger or a little more memorable, but I'll take a memorable protagonist any day. And I'm so glad that we had one here. And then with a horror movie, you have to be inventive in the way that you torture this character.
Yeah.
How do you torture this character in a way that's unique to them, in a way that's unique to their fears and their insecurities? And this movie does that very, very aptly in, there's that sequence. I laughed at it in the theaters when it first happened. And then as it kept going, I was like, oh, actually this does work. It's just goofy at first because it's absurd. There's this moment where Sky is in her apartment and fans come into the apartment. It's like multiple people and they're like at the end of the hallway and they keep like moving with her.
Are those fans or are those supposed to be her backup dancers?
That's a good question.
I got the impression that it was her backup dancers.
Oh, maybe it is. It could be, but regardless, this idea of like your insecurities, your fears coming to bear in your environment, that's interesting. And the way that conglomeration of people moved was interesting to me and unique. And yeah, man, I just enjoyed the way that they tortured her. And I loved the like pulling the rug out from under us. They did it a few times where it's, completely unreliable narrator. It's, we're watching something and it just turns out to be completely untrue. Yeah. Loved it. I thought that went really well. It spoke to her paranoia. All of the stuff with what's his face's Peter Jacobson, all of his stuff was interesting to me. And I thought it was a really good, solid movie. It's memorable. and I probably will rewatch it. I also want to mention, and I want to see if you react to it the same way that I did, that opening scene that seemed, I don't know how long it was a single take, or if it was designed to look that way and it wasn't, or if it was, or no idea.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a breakdown on it.
Me neither.
But it was convincing regardless. And I thought that sequence was phenomenal.
It was so good. What a way to open the movie, just with this definitely perceived oneer. I mean, there was a couple of times where I thought like, okay, this is where I would have, like, the camera
That's
goes,
where the cut should be.
The camera goes through a window at one point. And I was like, okay, that probably was stitched together digitally, but it was done so well that there was no obvious seam, or someone with a jacket doesn't back into the camera and cause complete darkness for a frame. Nothing like that. So like, it was so well done. No, I loved it. And that brought me in immediately. Totally. I think that this movie, again, with the sound design and with the musical cues they have, is just a very unique sound to this movie that just makes it stand apart from other horror movies. Like, there's always some creepy thing you can do, or you can pick at violins or whatever, but like, there's like very specific, I don't even know what instrument it is. Just like this droning noise that is, indicative of the entity, and just so good. You would have to watch like a clip from it online to know what I'm talking about. But it's good stuff.
But it's fantastic, and the sound design's great. The score is great. And it kind of had to be, right? Like, you're dealing with a story about a pop star. Mm-hmm. Music is going to be important in this, and sound is going to be important. It really works. Like, it's a really well-made horror film. I enjoyed so much about it. I just wish that ending was different. And I guess we can jump into spoilers about it if you want to.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump into spoilers. I think people should see it. If you have Paramount Plus, that's where it is. That's the easiest way to see it. But especially, if you liked the first one, I recommend this one. And again, Naomi Scott is a standout, and she's in like every frame of the movie, and she's so good. So good. Yeah.
So the ending, it ends with her going to her show, and the monster wins, the entity wins while she's on stage, thus seemingly traumatizing an entire
tens of thousands of people.
And I think that's an interesting premise. Again, it's something that I called almost immediately that this is going to happen. And I was disappointed when it did, because one, I didn't want to be right. Like, I didn't want it to go there, but also maybe because it's too obvious, but maybe also because it means she has to lose. And like, I would have loved for Smile 3 to be about her again. But I don't guess we could do that. So, I think I don't remember much about our review of the first movie, but I remember, at least maybe I said this then, I have thought it since, when the first one eventually shows the entity and she's like that large, whatever, it's like, okay, that's when you kind of lose me, because it's so much scarier when it's more of just a presence. It's more of like an abstract concept. When we see a manifestation of it, it kind of loses its appeal. So I didn't love it in the first movie, and I liked it kind of even less here. And I don't know if it's because it just didn't look great to me. Like, it looked practical. So like, that's cool, but like, or at least mostly practical. But I don't know if that was, what I was reacting to, but it just that physical manifestation of it is inherently less scary than the idea that it could be anywhere at any time. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I do. I liked it. I think it was done better here than the first film, because in the first film, it's like a guy. It's like that was Kellen's thing. I was like, it's just a guy. And but then like then it does like rip off its face, and it has all those mouths and stuff. But I think it was done better here. I think it's a double-edged sword because you're right. Like it's creepier. Obviously, if the whole movie, I think that's one reason the whole movie is not about the entity in this form, because it's not that. It's kind of ridiculous almost. But you're kind of forced to, like, since it is like this powerful, spiritual entity, you're almost forced to at least like acknowledge once in the film that it is an otherworldly, creature. That does have like a base physical form of some kind.
Sure.
I feel like that's one of those like bitter pills. Like I think they could probably handle it better. I'm not sure what notes I would give them, but like it certainly is like, yeah, let's just have one scene with this. And
right. Yeah.
And no more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the ending has really interesting implications. Somebody mentioned that they really hope that Smile 3 goes Bird Box on us, where like there's just widespread like horrific happenings that people are having to deal with. But like that to me turns into a completely different kind of movie.
Yeah.
Like if it happens on like a global scale that this is happening, then the genre like immediately changes. Now it's like a
zombie movie.
It's like a zombie movie. Yeah.
Outbreak movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about like, and it's just, it's better. It doesn't work as much when most of the world is aware of the threat.
Yeah.
So I feel like you probably, I don't know what their plans are, but it feels like Smile 3 has to be the last one. I don't think Paramount wants it to be, but let's just talk story. Like I think that it probably would be the final one because of just the sheer amount of people who were exposed to this trauma at the end of this film. Not to mention how many people are live streaming it, and there's gonna be clips online. Like it's gonna be a lot of people.
Yeah.
Does the entity just haunt everybody at once and spread it exponentially? Like, is that why he went after this famous person? I don't know. But so I'm interested. That's part of why I'm interested. I want to see how they pick up the ball and run with it for one more movie. So yeah, I wanted to see her win, but when it does reveal like, hey, this like syringe trick doesn't work, like none of this is real, I was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of contrived and dumb, wasn't it? Like I was kind of like, it is sort of harebrained. Like I figured out how we can kill this demon. We're gonna stop your heart, and we're gonna do all this like scientific stuff. And it's like, oh, okay. And then I got the feeling that like at the end that Morris isn't even real. Yeah. I'm not sure like if he is or isn't. I feel like he's not. I feel like Morris existed to give Sky hope. Yeah. And to fool the audience because not only does it say none of this is real, and then like she's not in the freezer, she's in her little pod thing on stage. Yep. And considering that when she was in the car with Gemma, that Gemma wasn't even in the car, that she was driving the car. Yep. I don't even think she was driving a car because she wasn't on her way to Staten Island. She wasn't on her way anywhere. She was just getting ready and on stage and whatever. Yep. And so it kind of played into like the whole, like that's part of the cruelty of this is like that there is no hope, but that's also a bad message. But at least it was consistent with like the movie's logic. Cause when like when she's in the bar talking to Morris and then everyone was, is that Sky Riley? They start talking to her. It just makes me realize like, no one's talking to Morris. Morris isn't there. No one says, who's this guy? Like there's no ADR line to make it clear that they see
who's she with?
Yeah. She's just at a bar by herself. And when her mom comes to the apartment after she oversleeps and she's like, are you kidding me? Like, she's like, I'm getting dressed. And they pan over to Gemma and she's got the matcha and she's just like, hey, Elizabeth. They don't cut to her mom going like, oh, hi, Gemma. Cause she's not there, and it plays because you feel like her mom's just ignoring her. Like, oh, you're nobody. Like, they didn't even cut to her. And now it makes sense. It's like, she was never there. She never called her back. That's two major storylines in the movie that exist just to make Sky think that she has a support system and that cares about her intrinsically, and she does not. So I thought that was all pretty brilliant, but it does trace back to there's no hope. But then, like you said, if there's no hope, there's almost no movie. unless you do this as a trilogy and the third movie ends with some hope. Still, that's 2 years of people watching the series going, oh, fuck, like this is tragic. You know, like there's no hope. And then maybe there isn't a third one and it builds to some hope. Yeah. But as a standalone movie, it's depressing kind of. Yeah. But, you know, then are we overthinking, you know, a smartly written movie that wants to continue existing?
Exactly. And whose studio mandates, if you want this movie to be made, you have to continue making them. And like, yeah, but I feel like, you know, if somebody handed me the keys and said, okay, write that third one, my initial thought would be, okay, well, if this whole thing is about trauma and passing it to others, then I need to do some research on how we break that cycle and then come up with some sort of allegory within the film's logic that supports the idea of breaking the chain and then what that does. And maybe the entity does not go away, but the entity is under control. Or maybe the entity doesn't go away, but it moves on from you to someone else. I don't know. But like you'd have to continue with that allegory to whatever its hopeful conclusion is. And I hope that they do that and they don't just do exactly what you said, which is, you know, this harebrained idea of like, well, kill yourself and then come back and you'll be fine. Which, you know, I believe enough within the context of the story that like, hey, I got to try something. Yeah. But I don't believe that could ever be the solve. Yeah. Because then the message to somebody who's been traumatized in the real world is, well, just almost kill yourself. Which is a really terrible message. Yeah. So to me, like, that's not what I was like. I was aware enough during the film that this can't be this can't work, because then the message is that. Yeah. So either they're going to try it and it won't work, or they're not going to get to try it. Yeah. But yeah, I'd be doing research with therapists and like what do you recommend for your clients in terms of breaking those cycles of generational trauma? And then how can I work that into some sort of supernatural entity's logic?
Even then, I feel like it presents a problem, because let's say that the solution is like, you know, the way you get rid of trauma is you simply have to acknowledge it and then live with it, but you know, break this, you know, I don't know how, but like, let's say that the solution is like you have to mentally decide that this is not going to define your existence and define your worldview and your perspective, and that you're not going to pass this on to other generations. So let's say however that works, you do that. The entity's in you, it's still trying to scare you, and it can't, right? But I don't see that happening. That makes sense with like the Babadook, because it's like chained up in the basement and it's, you know, it's managed. The entity can literally make you see and hear things that aren't there. Right. So every time you feel like you've got it managed, it's probably just tricking you into thinking it's managed. Right. And in reality, you're out there like stabbing people and you don't even know it, you know? Yes, so correct. The problem is, even if you get to like, that's how this works, you've given the entity too many powers within the story for that to work, for you to outthink it. Sure. It seems to be like you have to resist the thing catching you and getting inside of you. You know, like it seems like almost like once it's caught you and it's crawled down your face or whatever, like you're done. Now it's like, now it's influencing all of your thoughts. It's in control of your brain. You're done. But it's like, so it's, to me, it's like maybe she had hope before the apartment thing happened. And then once that crowd caught her, that's it. That was her death warrant. But then it's like, okay, how do you stop it then? Like, you just have to be faster than the people it's deciding to pretend to be. And it comes down to like physical contrivances. Like it's like Final Destination. Like I'm just going to lock myself in a cabin where I can't be harmed. And that's how I'll live. But even then the thing can just appear in the corner. Sure. So it's too powerful.
Maybe it's a matter of like recognizing your triggers, recognizing those falsehoods that your mind conjures, and actively choosing to, move the other way, right? Like if it says go left, you're going right. It's that active choice. And so to that end, it could, I agree with you. I think that the entity's overpowered at this point. But story wise, maybe it could work where if I can at least recognize that this is untrue, then it won't be true. And like it breaks it. And over time of breaking it enough, the power weakens. So whereas before it was creating an entire world that you were living in that was untrue. And by the end of the film, it's creating like a single person. And then after that, it gets smaller and smaller and it's creating one single small
feeling.
Yeah. Like a dripping faucet, you know what I mean? And you're like, that's not it. Right. It's a dripping faucet of your life and it will always be there, but that's all it is. Yeah.
And that could probably work because like one of the things Morris says, of course, Morris probably isn't real. So you can't really trust Morris, but Morris is speaking for the plot at this point. So I feel like we can trust Morris because he's Parker Finn.
Sure.
Morris says it feeds off all the bad shit in your head and that's what gives it power. And so if you were to, see an apparition in your house that's smiling at you and it's like your dead mom or something. And you just go, okay, like and you're not afraid of it. You've worked through this and you just go, yep, it's not real. And that tries kind of harder to scare you. Maybe it like jumps at you while you're pooping or something or whatever. But like you get used to it and you kind of just like at the end of A Beautiful Mind, like there's Paul Bettany and the little girl, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I still see them, but I know they're not real. And and that's just my life now. Yeah. I can almost picture like a montage at the end of Smile 3 that shows like about a dozen characters doing that, like dealing with it, and that would be a powerful ending. Like people carry this stuff all the time and there is a way forward and it's day by day and you just got to keep your head up or whatever. And that's, and even kids, like they go to sleep at night and then they see like the smiling thing in the corner and they're like, and they just turn over in bed and all right, I'm going to sleep.
And it has no power.
And because you would think like, oh, but like this is where it like, it now gets under your covers and it gets in front of you. But if you refuse to acknowledge it, it doesn't have the power to actually try multiple times. It tries once, it can't scare you. Okay, I guess I'll come back tomorrow. And I'll try to catch him when he's vulnerable or when he's been triggered.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. Like the idea that now we have a lot of people dealing with this all at the same time, that the message can almost be like, you're not alone. Like look at all these people and look at all the people that are going to be living with this now. And, exactly that. You see how that happens. It's the Godfather montage, but instead of mob bosses getting capped, it's an entity that's decreasingly powerful.
Yeah that makes sense to me.
Sure.
Okay,
well, we workshopped it.
We did it.
Okay.
All right, well, hopefully that's what Parker Finn wrote.
There you go. We'll see.
We ought to be able to see in a couple of years, so looking forward to Smile 3. Come
back here after Smile 3 comes out.
Yeah
See how we did.
Okie dokie. Okay, everybody.
It's either that or we've read too much into the allegory of this, and the allegory was not anything Parker Finn intended. And he's like, it's just a scary goblin.
Yeah. It is. Ooh.
Ooh. Ooh. It's just a scary goblin. Ooh. Ooh.